Thanks a lot. There's another question from Sweden. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I also really like your presentation. I mean, for me, this is really what the Inspire data specification should be about. And one of the reasons, I think, is that the first sentence you said that statistical data was not included in this discussion. How come statistical data is not included, but thematic data is very much included? I really don't understand this difference. Please. Perhaps it's an item that could be discussed at this afternoon.
Actually,
but it is a matter of concern,
really. We discuss a lot among the group about what can be called a statistical data versus thematic data, and actually in some themes we call statistical data things that are not really statistical. So it's hard to answer, but we have some side themes, population distribution and human health, for example. And these themes, they only use statistical data, thematic statistical data, let's say thematic data. And the spatial aspects are already all covered by statistical units. And the consequence is that this theme did not introduce new spatial objects because they only use the one provided by statistical units. But anyway, they introduce some specificities, some specialization for some given cases that are required by many use cases at the European level. So it's certainly one of the things we have to discuss it, where to draw this line in this slide shown by Vanda this morning.
Maybe one quick comment, and also Hugo. I think we will again come to this question when we look at the other thematic presentations. I think in general there are two types of themes maybe in Inspire. One that is more the areas, zones, units type of themes, like statistical units, administrative units, management area, and so on. Whereas the others are more the thematic themes that have some of the thematic information in them. And also if you read the definitions in the directive, they differ in these two aspects. So I think that we have both. We have the spatial components, and then we also have some of the thematic data that we also need if we want to have an infrastructure of environmental that supports environmental policies. We need the environmental thematic information there.
Well, actually, what you just mentioned about data not being part of the statistics data model, of course, there are a number of environmental directives for which the reporting is regulated through statistical regulation. The waste statistics regulation, for example, is one like that, but also the directive on pesticides, strangely enough. The reporting is done through the MX system. But then when we look at a directive like the Pesticides Directive, which basically says that member states need to maintain hedgerows, need to define buffer zones around aquatic environment, and so on, there's a lot of spatial data which is required to implement the measures necessary to reach the objectives of the Pesticides Directive. However, at the European level, the type of information used to assess is only based on NUTS 1 level, basically. So this is a very interesting case where reporting to the Commission this type of information for assessment is fundamentally different from the data and information which is needed to properly implement the measures under the directive. So in this case, where a reporting stream is already extremely well defined and so on, what we see now from the national statistical organizations, and Daniele can correct me if I'm wrong, but in a very recent meeting, they emphasized the importance of linking up with Inspire, right? And also they emphasized the importance of working more and more towards spatialization of statistics, geostatistics, so the gridding, so that we can come to more integrated spatial assessments And of course, for organizations such as the EEA and others, this is an extremely valuable approach in the future. So I think over time, where first we had a kind of an attitude of the statistical world that Inspire has nothing to do with statistics, we see a kind of change in the attitude, and this is only a very positive evolution. In the future, Eurostat and the statistical offices, according to me, will become some of the most important content providers for our spatial data infrastructure.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say a few more words, feeling obliged as a representation of the statistical office of the union. It is certainly a cultural divide which is being now filled in little by little. A few years ago, if I went to my colleagues in the operational statistical unit, they say, okay, Inspire, we are doing statistics, that's geographic information, we don't care. That's for mapping agencies, roads, railways, and so on. We have our nice nuts, we have tables, and tables are connected to codes, and this is all what we need. So now things are changing. This is certainly helpful to explain the link between these two worlds. Eurostat is also, or the statistical office in general, also moving, even independently from Inspire, to a much more geographical view of statistics. Just to mention an example, the last version of the farm structure survey and the regulation linked to this requires member states to provide the location of farms associated to a certain number of statistics to the farms. So we got now, for the first time, I think, we get coordinates of the location of something to which official statistics are associated. And this is a phenomenon which is continuing. It has been mentioned, of course, all the problematic of the population, and the census is being made, not in all countries, but in most countries now, is georeferenced. And there are works in trying to get out of this georeferenciation as much as possible information, so population not linked only to statistical units, but also to grids, and so on. So it's really a matter of development of a culture, which I think is now having these two worlds, which were traditionally completely separated, slightly converging. And it's mainly a matter of, I think now, to present things in a language that each of these two entities can easily understand. So it's not a matter of saying Inspire is not for statisticians, it's a matter of explaining in the right words how Inspire has to be embedded into the statistical collection and vice versa.
Okay, thanks very much. I think we need to move on. So unless there is a pressing other urgent question.